Yes, welcome into SportsBIT. Betting and Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Weekend preview edition. All-Star weekend and showdowns in college basketball all weekend long. 4 big games to break down. Kansas and Baylor, Virginia, North Carolina, USC, UCLA, and SMU and Houston. Sneaky SMU team. They've won 19 of 20. All that coming up. Bad beats, bad bets, bad from the books. It's where we'll start here on a Friday, Teddy. Yes, North Texas +4 and under 136 against UTEP. Goes to overtime. UTEP wins by 6.
It's just the worst. You have a dog, okay? And they're either tied or have the lead throughout the entirety of the second half. All right, there's not one point that UTEP is winning the game, and UTEP's laying 4. What happens? Goes to overtime. The under gets screwed. The dog bettors get screwed. Minors get the money. Tough beat if you had the mean green.
Yep, and Tim Floyd doing a pretty good job lately with UTEP as they're playing good ball. NC Wilmington laying 4.5 on the road. They led by 20 at the half. They had 47 points with 16 minutes. They had 54 points with 7 minutes. They win by 1. Still life on the bubble, but bad beat if you had Wilmington in that one.
Oh, yeah, you're laying 4.5. Your team's up by 20 at halftime? That's the nature of college hoops, though. What did Jimmy Vaccaro say? It always comes back to the number. Wilmington led by 20. They win by 1. Yeah, tough beat if you had the Seahawks.
Yep, we discussed it on the Google Hangout as well. A good question every Thursday, 8 o'clock Pacific, about these teams that can't put together a full game, play a great 20 minutes, and then fall apart. Bet for the books. Wizards bet up to 3 at Indiana. We told you, big game breakdown. This Pacers defense been horrible, and, they gave up 111, but Otto Porter led the way. 6 of 10 from 3. The Wizards shot lights out from 3.
Well, yeah, 15 of 29 from beyond the arc. 4 players with at least 19 points. As you mentioned, Otto Porter, 6 of 10 from three-point range. And look, the Washington Wizards have been mispriced for the better part of the last 2 months. The markets are saying, hey, bookmakers, get your act together. Nothing but Washington money again last night. And the books paid the price for not having the Wizards priced in the correct point spread range.
More bad for the books. Pac-12 chalk. Oregon bet up to 11.5. They run out Utah at home, and Arizona bet up to 14. They get by Washington State.
Yeah, 19-point win for the Wildcats on the highway. The Ducks are winning cover by margin over Utah. No Kyle Kuzma for the Utes, and those that got the info early cashed easily.
Big win for Gonzaga. 35-point win. Were the pros betting against them again?
Of course they were, Pauly. The best spread team in the country continues to be underpriced on a nightly basis. After all this time and all these point spread covers, the wise guys are like, no, Zags can't be laying this. Yes, they can. 30 last night from Nigel Williams-Goss.
Yes. Have you ever made a all-star dunk contest or three-point shootout bet?
Ever. I might have at one point. Again, for recreational purposes. I don't care if you want to put $50 on something, $100 on something. It's not going to kill you. But I remember there was at least one. There was one All-Star break where I really spent some time handicapping. And it was like, yes, I didn't win anything. So I have made bets, but significant wagers, no. And I'm not going to on this either. But it doesn't mean we can't talk about it. And we got an interesting story with this Derek Jones Jr. guy, Pauly.
Yes, we got odds. Let's look at some of this. Aaron Gordon, the favorite, -$2. Derek Jones Jr. plus $1.45. More on that coming up. Glenn Robinson, the third, 8-1. DeAndre Jordan, 11-1. So Derek Jones is only plus $1.45. Here's his story. Went to UNLV February 29, 2016. The NCAA threw out his ACT score. They canceled it, so he was deemed ineligible to compete under NCAA rules and had to sit out the rest of the season. Joined the Kings, 2016 Summer League, groin injury, unable to play. Phoenix picked him up. He's been in the D-League. He didn't dunk in an NBA game till the other night when they ran out the Lakers and they dropped 137 on him. This guy's in the dunk contest and he's only plus $1.45.
Which says somebody thinks he can dunk. But Aaron Gordon's the chalk here. Gordon's the chalk for a reason. He was pretty impressive in this contest a season ago.
Yes, 3-point odds. Klay Thompson, the favorite, plus $1.25. This should be tailor-made for his game.
Sure. How many times has Thompson won this? He's certainly chalk here for the reason. Klay Thompson built exactly for taking balls off the rack and knocking them down from three-point range. But interesting to see, after Thompson, like there's no number 2 guy. It's kind of real bunched up there with Lowry, Irving, McCollum, and Gordon, all priced between plus 450 and plus 550. What do you think? Anyone have any long shot there that you might be looking at?
Oh, no doubt, Eric Gordon. Because remember, in that Houston offense, they really spread the floor, so he shoots from the parking lot. So this shouldn't be a problem for him with his range in this one. I think Aaron Gordon's a good value there. That's all he does with the Rockets.
Sure, but he's got a bad back.
No, you asked me. I threw it out there. Plus 550. Yeah, I know. That could be an issue as well. Does another state here want to legalize sports betting?
Yeah, this is really good news. Again, for those who are interested in sports betting getting legalized, here's a tweet from Daniel Wallach. He puts out good info at Wallach Legal. A Pennsylvania lawmaker introduced a standby bill on sports betting if PAPSA is tossed. Of course, PAPSA is the federal legislation that limits sports betting to only 4 states. It's what New Jersey's been in court to sue against. So that's the 5th state this year. Michigan, South Carolina, New York, Maryland, and now Pennsylvania that has seen legislation introduced. They're ready to start making money off of sports betting. And that, Pauly, is a very, very good thing. And there was a report that came out from Moffett Nathanson Research, which is one of the leading media analysts on Wall Street. And the report basically said the NFL and the other major leagues are giving money away by not having legalized sports betting. So once the report came out, all of a sudden the AGA, their gaming association, is like, hey, broadcasters, come join us. We all got to lobby together. Let's see if we can get this thing done. There's momentum, Pauly. Again, I'm always taking the over on when sports betting is going to get legalized and regulated and the like. But there is momentum now in a way that we haven't seen very often in my nearly 20 years in Vegas.
Ratings would go up. Those MAC games on a Tuesday night would get a lot bigger ratings, I'll tell you that.
Well, the estimate is that if the U.S. were to legalize sports betting, roughly 10% of non-bettors would be likely to start betting on sports. And that's going to raise the overall time spent by viewers watching games from all sports.
Yes, excellent. Up next, big game breakdown. 4 games to go over, and then the play of the day coming up on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard at Teddy_covers. We tweet out the show bright and early Monday through Friday. Here we go. Big game breakdown, as always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Saturday night, the big one on ESPN, 5 o'clock Pacific. Virginia at North Carolina. It's number 14 against number 10. And projected line, North Carolina 4, 137. Cavs on a 1-3 straight up an ATS slide only win against Louisville, and they were down 3 starters in that game. Big problem in all losses this season. The Virginia offense goes cold in the second half.
Yeah, cold isn't even the word. Ice cold. I mean, look, you have London Parentes at 12.6 points per game. No one else in the team scores double digits. They haven't found a number 2 scorer. And in all of these games, lost to West Virginia, Pitt, Nova, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Duke. The second half margins, 9 or more in all of those games, and 5 of them, double-digit margins where the offense just isn't working during crunch time. It is worth noting here, Paulie, with all the games we're talking about on today's show, we got 4 big game breakdowns for Saturday's college hoop slate. We have line guesstimates, projected numbers. We'll call them the SportsBIT point spread, has North Carolina 4 and 137. Obviously, we'll see what the opening numbers actually are and what the markets do. All we can do is give our best guesstimate of where the numbers are going to be. It's not, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see all of our lines off by a point or 2, but I don't expect them to be off by a whole lot. You know, Tony Bennett, I bet he wishes he could just make all the games stop at halftime because Virginia's been such a good first half point spread team, but not so much after the break.
North Carolina finally gets Pinson back in the starting lineup. He was 6-8 in the win against NC State, 4 assists, but now it's been a lot of this in college basketball. Now they lose Kenny Williams, 22 starts. He's out the rest of the season with a knee injury, DNP against NC State, but his defense will be missed. Roy Williams, quote, "I've said all year long that Kenny was our best perimeter defender. He really is. Some guys have to step up. Theo Pinson, Nate Britt, we've got to get better defensively because that is our best perimeter defender," end quote. Carolina likes to play fast. Virginia doesn't. This is going to be great where one team wants to run, the other team wants to slow it down.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the total is lined, I would say, it in a more Virginia range than a North Carolina range. But even Virginia, you're not seeing a lot of totals in the upper 130s. In North Carolina, you're certainly not seeing a whole lot of totals in this range. But seconds per shot, North Carolina 15. And they like to shoot early in the clock. They get out and run every chance they get. And Virginia dead last in the country in terms of how long it takes for them to take a shot on every possession. And it's really an interesting battle on the boards as well here. You have North Carolina, and we've talked about this, the Tar Heels offense. Their offense is dominating the offensive glass. They have rebounded 42.5% of their misses this season. That is the best offensive rebound rate in the country. But Virginia, they don't give up anything on the offensive glass, only allowing 23.2% of opposing rebounds to work their way back to the team that shot it. That's number 3 in the country. So the question is, and this is the central point for the handicap of this game, does North Carolina have the patience to work through the Virginia defense and get good shots, because they're not going to get a whole lot of their own misses, certainly not as many as they've been getting throughout the course of the ACC campaign.
Yep, and this Virginia defense hasn't played well in the second half, too. You mentioned the offense, but would they give up 40 points in the second half to Duke at home? And then they had all those issues that Sunday night game at Virginia Tech when they lost, and they couldn't. The penetration killed them in that game. Virginia Tech got a lot. I mean, it was wild to see a Virginia team give up that many easy baskets in those last 2 games.
Well, I mean, Duke can get hot, and I'm not looking at Virginia saying, they fell apart defensively. Tony Bennett and the fundamentals that he teaches on defense have been thoroughly installed in that program. If they have a bad game or a bad half or run into a buzzsaw where a team's just hitting shots, then I would expect that to be a short-term problem, not a long-term problem for the Cavaliers.
All right, game number 2, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. What a way to start the day on Saturday. 10 a.m. Pacific, CBS, number 3 against number 4. Kansas is in Waco to take on Baylor. Baylor 2.5. Projected line, 141.5 the total. First trip. At home, Kansas was laying 6.5. They won 63-58. Baylor led by 4 at the half. It was tied with 2:30 left, Teddy.
Yeah, 54-54 with 2.5 left before the Jayhawks pulled away for the 5-point non-spread covering victory. Bill Self, quote, "Our guys kept hanging in there. They kept grinding. And we really played good defense the last 2.5 minutes. I thought we disrupted their rhythm a little bit because we pressured them more in the second half. The big thing is we just competed better." Josh Jackson, 23-10 in that game. Frank Mason, 19 points and 6 assists, though, with a big 2 for Kansas in the home win over Baylor last month.
Yes. Look at this schedule, though. Look how they finished the season. Forget about how they end the season. It's got to be the toughest 8-game stretch of anybody in the entire nation. Look at the Ken Palm ratings. At West Virginia, number 4. At Kentucky, number 7. Baylor at home, number 8. Iowa State, 26th. At K-State. At Texas Tech. West Virginia. And then Baylor. Look at that gauntlet they have to go through.
Yeah, well, they've been through it, when a team, and Kansas has been, of all the elite teams this year, Kansas has been the worst point spread team. But that's going to create 2 situations for the Jayhawks down the stretch and into the tournament. Number 1 is that they're going to be as battle-tested as anyone, And number 2 is, the markets aren't going to white hot on Kansas the way they are on some of the other elite squads. So maybe there'll be more money to be made with Kansas, a team that's tested. But I worry about them wearing down. Lack of depth is an issue for this team. Over the last 7 games, out of 290 potential minutes, look, Mason at 262, Graham at 262, Jackson at 250. And one issue you worry about with a tired team, a team with some tired legs, rebounding. Baylor, really good on the offensive glass, Number 9 overall for the season, number 1 in the Big 12 since the start of Big 12 play. Kansas defensive rebounding, well, they haven't snared them. They're number 214 in the country at grabbing the percentage of defensive rebounds, which means that Baylor's going to be live on the offensive glass, just like they were in the first meeting, Pauly. Baylor got offensive rebounds on 40% of their misses. Jonathan Motley, 16 points and 10 boards, a lot of them on putbacks in that ballgame.
Don't trust. They might win Saturday, and they're favored, at least the projected line. I don't trust this team in big games. I don't like how they're playing down the stretch. And you know what's happened in the tournament the last 2 years. They lost to Yale and Georgia State as big favorites.
Sure, and when you find a team that's losing early as big favorites in the tournament, year, that's one of those things. I don't pick against that. When I'm doing brackets, I can tell you right now, I'll pick Baylor to get upset because that mindset, that mentality of, we got to avoid the upset, it can creep into a program, and these type of things can happen over and over and over again. Baylor wouldn't be the first team that has been a high seed eliminated, not just in consecutive seasons, but repeatedly by lower-seeded foes.
Great card Saturday. We continue. USC, UCLA, Saturday night, and SMU and Houston, plus the play of the day. Coming up on SportsBIT, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up on SportsBIT, betting insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Big game breakdown continues live on SportsBookReview.com. Saturday night, Pac-12 Network, 7 o'clock, 21-5 against 23-3 USC at UCLA. Projected line UCLA 11, 169 the total. Last season, USC went 3-0 against them. And all three comfortable wins by 14, 19, and 24 here in Vegas in the Pac-12 tourney. Then this year, USC was catching 7 at home. They won 84-76 on January 25th. USC by 65 on the scoreboard, plus 16 points per game, and 72.5 ATS, Teddy. 18 points per game ATS.
Yeah, and again, the projected number says USC will be a double-digit underdog against a team that they have played 4 times over the last 2 years and dominated all 4 of those meetings, essentially. So you wonder, the Bruins, you say this is a big chalk revenge favorite, but the swagger may not be there I'm sure the hunger's there for the UCLA side. The swagger, I'm not so sure about. The first meeting this year, UCLA's up 8-0, they're up 20-10, but they never got, USC made their run. UCLA never got closer than 4 in the second half, and that was even without Benny Boatwright in the lineup for USC. Now remember, UCLA, 48% shooting in that game versus 40 for the Trojans. But USC was draining them from downtown, 14-34 from beyond the arc. UCLA only hit 6 three-pointers, and the Bruins had 9 more turnovers. Lonzo Ball never got comfortable against that Trojan defense. He turned the ball over 7 times himself. And he got stopped at the rim more than once in that game as well.
A lot of those turnovers ignited the USC offense, got them going as well. Offered, quote, "We dug ourselves a big hole in the first half with a high number of turnovers. That's something you cannot afford on the road against a team like USC. They were able to get a lot of points in transition, and that was thanks to our turnover woes. Our turnovers led to a lot of three-point baskets from USC," end quote. Bruins have the size advantage, but they didn't use it. Leaf only had 8 points and 8 rebounds. He averages almost 17 and 9 a game. UCLA 4-0 straight up since the first loss, but only 1-3 ATS, 2-4 ATS, laying double digit in Pac-12 games because, again, they're not buying in and playing any defense.
No, and the rule for me is simple. When I'm looking at a double-digit favorite, the favorite has to be able to close out the game on the defensive end. Doesn't matter, I'm talking in football, you can talk in the NFL, or particularly in college. It's not always about an offense that can keep scoring. You got to get stops during crunch time, especially against a high-octane offensive team like USC. I'm not convinced that UCLA can do that, and especially considering the fact that the Bruins, with that size advantage, didn't take advantage of it in the first meeting. And now USC with Boatwright back, the size advantage is not quite as great for the Bruins as it was last time around.
Over?
I wouldn't bet it under.
I'm with you. Last game, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Good game. And our stats guy thinks this team can go to the Elite Eight. SMU at Houston. SMU projected line 2, 132 the total. It's at 3 o'clock Pacific on ESPN2. SMU has won 19-20. They only lost by 2 on the road against Cincinnati. Come on. First meeting, they were laying 9. They won by 21. SMU led by 17 at the half and coasted. They were up, biggest lead was 27. Beat them up on the boards. They were 30 of 53 shooting and had 25 assists. Houston now, 5-0 straight up and 4-1 ATS since the first meeting, trying to play themselves into the bubble discussion.
Yeah, the Cougars aren't going to be a bubble team. They're not a tournament team, and they're at home here. They did pull an upset last year, 77-73 over SMU. They were +6 in that ballgame. Maybe a little bit of confidence of this team. But on the other hand, that also makes SMU forewarned to get a little bit of revenge. Kelvin Sampson, I guess he's looking for a breakthrough that could, what are they, 18-7? This is the type of win that could get them into the discussion for bubble. But you look at that 5-0 straight up 4-1 record against the spread. Since that first meeting, all they've done is beat the crap, the lower tier AAC teams that can't match their talent. When you talk about the upper tier teams in this conference, well, let's see. They played SMU, they played Cincy, they played Memphis. They're 0-3 straight up. They're 0-3 against the spread in those games, and they've lost to the spread by a combined margin of 28 points against the three pretty good teams in this conference.
How about this SMU team? They lack depth, but they have unique chemistry. Makes them dangerous at tourney time. All 5 starters between 6'6" and 6'8", and the only rotation player off the bench is 6'5". Now, in conference play in the AAC, 13 games, you look at this graphic, you got 35 minutes a game, 36, 33, 32, 30, and 23. But if you look at Foster, one more biscuit for breakfast, he'd be up to 10 points per game. That would be 5 guys averaging double figures.
Well, yeah, there's so many interchangeable parts on this team. Your point guard can play the 5. When you bring a Malogu off the bench, it's no issue at all because he can fit in for anybody. Foul trouble is a concern for a team that only has 6 guys that get major minutes. But, Tim Yankovic can substitute across the board, and that makes it. There's one more stat worth noting on this graphic. Look at that. Every single player, every key player in the rotation, all 6 guys, has a positive assist-to-turnover ratio. There's no one that the ball gets stuck in their hands. There's no one that can't make a pass out of a bad situation on offense when they're pressured.
And the offensive boards, number 4 in the nation at getting offensive boards, SMU. Houston, 267 and giving them up. First meeting, SMU, offensive rebounds on 42.9% of the chances. Huge stat there in that one, Teddy. And how dangerous do you think this team could be tournament time?
Well, let's put it this way. I think SMU has the potential to make us money on Saturday, and I think they have a good chance to make us money indefinitely down the road. That's why we're going to use them in play of the daytime. Paul, are you ready to go there now?
Let's do it. Strange week where we had 2 pushes. Push last night. Got the best of the number with the Celtics +1, and then got the worst of it Monday night with Louisville. So again, for the viewers, let's try to make it 3 in a row for the viewers. Betting number 611. SMU -2, good to -3.5. You got a Duke transfer as well. The balance, just a better team than Houston. And the key stat there, the offensive rebounds, and also Houston has struggled when they had to step up in class. And again, this team is on fire. 19-1 in their last 20, and a close loss at Cincinnati. Hell of a team. Nasty team in SMU. Let's lay it on the road in this one. All right, exciting week coming up next weekend, even though it's All-Star break. It continues. Ian Cameron to talk hockey. We got Nigel on to talk EPL and some soccer. And I reached out, and he's on board. Maybe look for this in a couple weeks. Steve Sear, the top host in the country and subject of the book Whale Hunt in the Desert. We'll talk McGregor, Mayweather, and what do these high rollers, whales, want when they come to town and they play $25,000 a hand in blackjack. We'll have him on to talk about all this great stories in Vegas, and it'll be a fun show coming up. And we're getting that close to March and a couple weeks away from championship week. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends. SportsBIT, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com. Have a good weekend.